talking about something that's greater. Now, let me ask you a question. Why do you think that they destroyed Sumer? Now, they didn't destroy Egypt. They took stuff from Egypt, but they left a lot of stuff in Egypt. And I'll show you that if it wasn't for the Bible, archaeologists wouldn't be in Egypt in the first place.
Come on.
Now, Europeans, after Alexander, they left it alone. But what happened is they went over there and they destroyed Sumer and took all the artifacts. And why did they take all the artifacts? It's because they didn't want to connect black people to Egypt, black people to Hebrews. They erased the identity and they gave it to the Arabs. Y'all can have this. Y'all look just like us. Keep this. And then they did what? They did the same thing to Ethiopia. Egypt. Who's in Egypt today? The National Arab Republic? Because anything, if you look at the history, you know that the ancient teachings of Masons is that the Hiram Abiff story is a spin-off of Hiram inside of the scriptures. But it's the spin-off telling you how they killed the black civilization. Hiram Abiff was the master builder. Hiram Abiff knew the science of the pyramids, he knew the science of the ziggurats, and he was building what? The Temple of Solomon. And there was 13 conspirators against Hiram Abiff. 10 of them backed out. And that kind of is going to coincide with Daniel and your 10 horns. 3 of them, Jebullah, Jebulon, and Jebulon, all conspired, which are representations of America, Europe, and France. And what did they do? They killed Hiram Abiff and stuck a tent peg in his what? Temple. Because they wanted them to be mentally dead. But they buried them in 3 places. They buried them in the north gate of the temple, they buried them in the west gate of the temple, and the east gate of the temple. Why do you bury somebody 3 times? You don't. It's symbolic. But it was symbolic for all of black history, all the black nations that had a science that was divine, that they killed them off and they took their identity. That's what they're telling you about Hiram Abiff. They're telling you that they killed off all the Semitic and Asiatic and black and Hamitic science of the world. And they buried you in the West Gate, West Indies. They buried you in the East Gate, East Africa. And they buried you in the Northern Gate, which is America. So these are the things that we have to look at. These are the things that we have to look at as brothers and sisters. So when we fighting each other, or we targeting each other, there's somebody greater that's targeting us both. See, we the only people that believe Hamitic and Shemitic people ain't black. We want to leave it to Hamitic people. But we know that all of that, we the dominant people on the earth. That means the Europeans are the minority. So they go into Sumer, and the reason why they go into Sumer and they destroy Sumer is because Sumer is the only thing that connects the Bible with authenticity. Okay. Sumer is the only thing that connects the Bible to become authentic. Now, I want y'all to listen to this, brothers. If you destroy Sumer, then you don't have another superpower to balance Egypt. Now listen to what I'm saying. It is not Egypt I'm attacking. It's Egypt, European Egyptologist philosophy that I'm attacking. When you destroy Sumer, you can make Egypt as old as you want it to, because there's no parallel kingdom to match it up with. You remember the Sargon and Sennacherib's palace with the big blue walls? You know what happened to it? The Europeans didn't knock it over. They took it apart nice and neat, packed it up, and bounced with it. They walked off with it for the whole city. Because now what happens with Egyptians' timeline is that the Europeans are actually pushing it further for themselves. And now they're creating a pre-dynastic. They want to create some more people or some more Egyptians to make it older than what it was. And I will go into it and I will break it down now. And I want us to understand this. You don't hear nothing about, when you went to school, did you learn about Sennacherib or Sargon? About Hammurabi. In college, you learn about Hammurabi in college. You learn about Egypt everywhere, right? You learn about Egypt because they're teaching you Egypt without the other nation because they want to take that for themselves. What was the purpose of them blowing the nose off? Because they don't want you to see the connection. They don't want you to see the connection. Let me share something with my brothers and sisters. Now, only time you hear about Summa is when they want to disprove the Bible, right? Oh, there's an ancient flood text. Oh, the Bible. The ancient flood text, they got it. It predates the Bible by thousands of years, right? Well, there's a book called The Babylonian Deluge Story. And what I explained in the beginning, the brothers wasn't here, is that there's an ancient civilization in Sumer, which we all, our brothers know. But in that place, it was a city called Nippur. In Sumerian, the city is Mi'ibaru, which means land of the crossing or land of Hebrews, right? Now in it, there is an oracle priest called Tehu. Tehu is Tira of the Bible. Tehu moved from developed then they shipped him to Haran, which is another place to maximize their growth of their flocks. And he built up Haran. And that's how Abraham comes on the scene. Because Abraham is migrating from Semitic people and Hamitic people. Because during that time there was a king called Ur-Nammu, which was one of the greatest kings of ancient Sumerian civilization. And what he did was incorporate the science of the Shemitic people that they had under them with the Hamitic people. Where Tehu was allowed to raise up and become an oracle priest. The thing with Abraham is he did understand the oracles of the science of the heavens. He understood that if Mars lines up behind the sun, what kind of effect it has on the people. But what it is that he wanted to find a higher source, and that is the Creator who created it all. So now, when I get back to the Sumerian text, I check out the Sumerian text and it says, the flood story in Sumeria. Older than the biblical one, right? It's wrong. And I say that because there is a man called Archibald in the book of Ezra chapter 4, his father's name is Esradon. Remember the same people that said, let me help you build the temple. They said, we know about your God. We was brought over here by Esradon, which is Archibald's father. There is no old Sumerian writing of a flood story that is in existence. But what it is that they found one, and I'll show you. They found amongst amongst his personal library, he had things that were copied from the temple of Nebo, and he had things that he copied from the temple of Nebo, and he had things that were actually from the temple of Nebo. In the Babylonian and Sumerian deluge story, the actual fragments that were there, supposed to be there for the flood, is represented by the colophon that's on the side, and it tells you that it's a remake by Archibald. Archibald was a king during the time of 600 and around 45 BC. So the Babylonian flood story is a remake of an ancient story, and if people want to doubt the flood, then you have to go to every ancient history because there's 500 flood stories. Right? So this is the only time you hear Sumer come up now, only when they're using it to smash the Bible. I want us to go look into this timeline. Now, this is the proof. I want to go into the little bit of the breakdown of the timeline and how it's off. All right. Some of the stuff I can just basically explain, but I want to go verse for verse and show you some things. All right. In the Sumerian, in the Egyptian timeline, Ptolemy II ordered Manetho, the priest of ancient Egypt, to write a history on Egypt. Manetho wrote the history on Egypt, but they took it as being successional rulers when the Egyptian kings, as my brothers can tell you, are not successional rulers, they're regional rulers. Listen to what I'm saying. In the Bible, if I have King Jeroboam and Rehoboam, I can't put in Jeroboam. Why? Because they reigned in the same time. In Egyptian chronology, European Egyptian chronology, there's nothing wrong with Egypt, it's wrong with the European chronology of it, because in Egyptian chronology, you have Menes, then it goes down and down and down and down. You don't have no kings reigning side by side. Now, what happens when you have regional kings, but you make them in succession? What happens to that date when you fix it? Huh? It becomes smaller. So now, mostly everybody's is at 3100, right?
No, Dr. Ben goes farther than that.
Huh? Dr. Ben goes farther than that?
Yeah, about 34, and then Brunel does like 36, and then we do like 46.
All right.
We don't even listen to white people.
Well, okay. Well, now let's go into it now. Now, in the chronological breakdown, if they do it by according to what Manetho does, and Manetho has many flaws, and there's many books now that's coming out, and I'm going to get into it, that's showing the problems with these timelines. Now, they're all successional. Now, if we take 31, 34, if we break them and put the regional rulers side by side, and many of the pharaohs on the list already have no artifacts or even proven to exist, when you break it down, that brings Egypt's history around the era of 21 or 2200. Now, many scholars challenge this. Even our scholars challenged it. Because they said it doesn't make sense. Now, I want to bring it to a couple of brothers. There's a man, David Rowe, the author of Test of Time. He suggested that Ramses II should be dated 10th century BC, 350 years later than the date which was assigned in the Orthodox chronology. All right? Peter James and 4 other scholars pushed the book of the century called Darkness, claim that the Egyptian dynasty needs to be reduced by hundreds of years. Now, also, it says this crucial period in the world history to the shaky nature of dating, the whole chronological framework upon which its current interpretations rest, the existence of chronological orders for the crucial phase of human history are in error by several centuries, and that, in consequence, history has to be rewritten. Now, Sir Alan Gardner, inside of the book Ancient Egypt, Alan Gardner is one of the founders of Ancient Egypt. He's not founder of Ancient Egypt, but the chronological order. He's one of the. Yeah, he's one.
He wrote the Howard Dictionary.
Yeah. He's the one. He's the one who put together the chronological order. And one of them, and him and the other few Europeans. But he makes this statement, and he is one of the authoritative figures. He makes a statement in history that admits it is an inherent problem surrounding Egyptian chronology. Even when fully used, has been made the kings list such as subsidiary sources as have survived. An indispensable dynastic framework of Egyptian history shows lamentable gaps and many of doubtful attributions, which is proudly advertised as Egyptian history, is merely a collection of rags and tatters.
Is that an Edomite saying that?
It's a European saying that.
Okay, European, okay.
But it's the European who is pro the chronological order that we use today.
Okay, of Egyptology.
Yeah, it's European Egyptology that we.
All right. Now there's many that go on now. Now one of the problems when we look at it,